Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. I had a recollection come to me here recently and I wanted to try it for you guys. And basically what it is it's a steamed bread. And it's a bread that wasn't baked. It was actually steamed in a double boiler. Now where this recollection comes from, this comes when I was very, very young. My grandfather's good friend lived in the farm next to my mom and dad, and my grandmother and my mother were still good friends with his wife after he had passed away. And I would go over there and play in the woods and whatever, but they were, even for the time frame when I grew up, early 70s and stuff, they were very still kind of on the primitive side. They did have electricity. They had a television set. They had a few electric lights, and they had an electric radio. Other than that, that's pretty much what they had. They still had an outhouse. They still had a hand pump well, but they had a wood cook stove. And that wood cook stove served, I'm going to say, 75% of their cooking needs. And one of the things that I can remember them talking about, I can't really remember seeing it, and I don't remember seeing any recipes, but they would steam bread on that cook stove when they were making like a stew or a soup. And basically what they would do is they would mix up whatever the bread was, and they would take a small mason jar or whatever, as far as I kind of heard, and they would put a dollop of that dough in a mason jar that was greased, and they would put it in a double boiler like this right here, and they would just let that simmer on the stove, and it basically made like a crustless dinner roll, I guess is what it would be. I have never tried to make this before, but because I was thinking about this, I said, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. And what I got here is I got probably too much flour, but I'm going to, like I said, this is just an experiment. This is actually King Midas bread flour that we got from the Amish Mennonite store. And what I got in there is I got a packet of dry yeast that was getting close to expiration that I wanted to use up. I did a pinch of kosher salt, and I did about a teaspoon of white sugar. And you could use pretty much any kind of sweetener for this. You could use honey. I'm sure that would work fine, because I don't know if they did this as a quick bread or if they did it as a yeast bread, but I'm going to try this here as a yeast bread. I'm going to mix this up with a little warm water, and then I'm going to grease these little jelly jars here that I got, and I'm going to get them in that double boiler. But that's basically all I got here. The yeast and the sugar and the salt are in here with the flour, and I'm going to take just enough water here. That's kind of, I spilled all over. I want just enough water in this for this to come together and kind of make a dough, and then I'm going to let this sit for a little bit so it can kind of raise, because I want them to raise in those mason jars a little bit. But this, I thought that this was kind of a clever idea, and it would be something that if you had a lack of fuel, or if you're already cooking something on a wood stove or whatever, you could maybe make something like this work for you if you were kind of in a pinch and you didn't have an oven. But because it is steamed, it's going to be crustless. It's not going to have no golden brown crust or anything like that. But like I said, I wanted to see if this is kind of a viable technique, and I'm taking you guys along here. And that is my dough that I'm going to use. Now I'm just going to let that set for a little bit. I'm going to let that rise up. Then I'm going to punch that down, and I'm going to get it in these little jelly jars here, but I'm going to grease the jelly jars with a little bit of butter. All right, guys, it's been about an hour and a half. This raised up, I punched it back down, and now I'm actually dividing it up into these little jelly jars here, and I'm going to show you about how much dough I took, and I have no idea if this is the right amount or if it's going to overflow or not, but I'm going to find out. So that's about how much that I put into my jars here, and I put enough water in the double boiler here to have about 2 inches of water past the top of this here. And this is the dough that's left. I'm actually just going to put that in a regular bread pan. I'm going to bake that. So I would say probably a cup would be enough for this amount, a cup of flour instead of 2 cups like I did. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to set these guys in here. Drop them. And when this comes up to a boil, I'm going to get the lid on it, and then I'm just going to turn this back, and I'm going to let this steam. I'm going to give it probably 20 minutes or so, because I don't want it to kind of go overboard, but I'm going to check it as I go, and when they're done, I'm going to show you what they look like. And here we are about 5 minutes into it. You can see the ones there in the smaller jelly jars are kind of coming up over the top, and the other ones are staying in the jars. But those are the only jars that I had. Anyway, we're going to give it a few more minutes and we'll pull one out and try one. All right, guys, I have been watching this. This has been about 16, 17 minutes. I believe they're done. And believe it or not, they have a really good aroma. I can't really explain it. It almost has like a noodle type smell. And I am going to set these guys out here, and then we're going to let them cool. This guy here's got some water in it. This guy doesn't, though. This one's nice and dry. I love experimenting with these old cooking techniques because you never know if something would happen. They might come in handy. This one here's got liquid in it. You know what these remind me of? They almost remind me of like dumplings from Chicken and Dumplings. Anyway, I'm going to let these guys cool down here. These short ones here I'm going to drain water out of, so I learned something not to use these kind of jars. Use the bigger ones because none of these here look like they have water in it. But we're going to let these cool down, and then we're going to try one and see what they taste like. All right, guys, I want to show you this real quick here. I let these cool down a little bit, but they actually come out very, very nice. And they actually got a little bit of the butter from where I greased those jars up. I actually really like how these guys look here, how they turned out. The two that had water in them are a little bit doughy, but these are actually perfect. I'm gonna let these cool for just a second or two yet, and then we're gonna try one. All right, guys, these things have cooled down, and I want to show you what they look like. These turned out really good, the ones that were in the longer, the half pint jars. These here are kind of doughy, kind of like a dumpling. I could basically consider those a failure. But we're going to pull one of these apart, and you can see it basically turned out just like a dinner roll, except it doesn't have a crust on it. So I'm going to give this guy a try here. Soft, tastes just exactly like bread. I cannot believe how well this turned out. I would have never thought that steaming them in a double boiler like that would yield this kind of results. It's amazing. It's just like a baked roll without the crust. So I'd have to say that was a success. And if you have as long as you have a few jars and you have a double boiler, that's actually the double boiler that I use for a bunch of different things like tamales and stuff. I'd have to say that this is a very viable technique if you have a way to do this. I guess I learned something today that you don't have to have an oven to bake bread. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Appreciate all my subscribers out there. I really appreciate you guys being around here today to kind of watch me as I do this experiment. I do this kind of stuff all the time when I go back into my recollections and just some different ways and different things that I think that would help people out if there would be some type of long-term SHTF event. But anyway, appreciate you guys. You guys have a good one.